here. So today's assembly, as you are filling out the comments section, today's assembly is being sponsored by One Love Global and Liberation PAC, Black Lives Matter Lansing, and our Black Lives Matter Allyship of Michigan. So these are our convening partners, and we are glad to host today's assembly. And I'm going to ask, if we go to the second slide, I want you to see that question, the opening question. Yeah, there we go. So who is a leader you respect and admire? Who is a leader you respect and admire? We're putting that in the comment section. We've got everyone from Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Florence Nightingale, President Obama, Beyonce, Queen Bee, Dalai Lama, yeah. Who else? Fill out the comment section. Who is a leader you respect and admire? If you are joining us for the first time, we've already had some shout outs. We want to give a welcome to those that are joining us for the very first time. I clap my hands and we say, welcome to the People's Assembly family. Gandhi, absolutely. So our discussion today will be around leadership, leaders and leadership, especially specifically looking at city leadership. We have some wonderful folks that have volunteered to facilitate the breakout discussions, and you will see them. How do you know that one is a facilitator? They have asterisks before their name, stars or asterisks before their name. So when you get into your breakout sessions, make sure you tell them thank you. And we want to say thank you to all of our facilitators for volunteering, because this is not a sprint. The work of dismantling racism is not a sprint. This is a marathon. We're in this for the long haul. Next slide, please. All right, so my name is Sean Holland. My nickname that I go by is Mordecai. I will be your moderator. And we talked about our host organizations and our partnerships. We have for tech support, Sarah Ghetto. Sarah, can you smile and give them a thumbs up so we know she's awesome? And so listen, if you get into your breakout room and you're having issues, just reach out to Sarah Ghetto. That's Gettel all day long. Let's see here. We also have, again, our facilitators. We got some amazing folks that are ready for us. And during these discussions that we're going to have in these breakout sessions, these are dream sessions. So we don't want you to feel restricted. We want you to feel like you can speak. And again, this is for us. Now, what I would like to say as we go to the next slide is that these discussions are not discussions that won't lead to anything. These discussions will, the results will make their way into policy. And that specific policy that we're talking about is the Breathe Act. And they'll put the link in the comment section. So a part of BLM work, there's two sides of the coin. There's protest and there's policy. And so this is the long haul. So our agenda today, what is a People's Assembly? And when we talk about a People's Assembly, very simply stated, a People's Assembly is where the collective determine the outcomes, not the elected. And we are all taxpayers, and we have a voice, and your voice matters in all things related to our city and our city government. So again, you have come to a safe space where we are going to engage in key discussions today around city leadership. Our grounding will be by Angela Waters Austin, our CEO of One Love Global. We'll review our safety priorities from July's assembly survey, and then we'll head out into our breakout groups to reimagine city leadership based upon the priorities that we will review from the prior People's Assemblies. You have spoken and we have noted, and so we will review what those priorities are, And the discussion will last 1 hour. And again, we will come back for our report out and next steps on how you can get involved. So we're super excited. Next slide. So when we talk about the People's Assembly, an ongoing process of in a dedicated space, we're community-driven and co-governance. No one owns this space. This space is not owned by an organization or a person and or persons. This is a co-governing space. This is about community. And so democratize data and make information accessible. So we'll be sharing information with you during our time. Place will center those directly impacted. So oftentimes those who are directly impacted by policy, oftentimes we do not get a chance to hear their voices. And so we want to make sure that we hear from those who are directly impacted. We build our vision and priorities together. And I think this is important to hear this because oftentimes we react when things are happening in our community, when the purpose is to build a sustainable plan for how we're going to dismantle racism and all of us experience a brand new structure and future. And we're going to hold ourselves and elected officials accountable. When we talk about accountability, it doesn't mean attack. And so many times when we talk about accountability, people hear the word attack. We are not attacking, but it is our responsibility to hold our elected officials accountable. And then we will taking action and delivering results. And again, if you've never heard of the BREATHE Act, like I can't breathe, then they will put the link in the comment and or chat section for you to become more familiar. And we're going to contextualize that as the bill has already been submitted on a national level. We are working to submit it on a state as well as a local level. So we're going from protest to policy, policy back to protest, and we will not quit. Next slide. So Angela, would you like to lead us in our grounding? Thank you. Let's welcome Angela Waters Austin.
Thank you, Mordecai. Can everyone hear me? Awesome, thank you. So we have a lot of wonderful content for you today, and we're just going to dive right in so we can go right into the first slide here. So what we are really trying to get to, our big goal, the North Star, is actually having a beloved community. And this is the beloved community envisioned by Dr. King and articulated by us in our community. And for us, that means that we can no longer predict outcomes by race. The conditions that create crime and violence are no longer present in our community. Racial hierarchy is no longer the norm, and we all feel safe and welcome. Next slide, please. So these next few slides are going to tell you a little bit about how we got to where we are, and then some information to help us get situated in our conversation and thinking about what leadership means to us and what we really want it to look like in our community. And so we began the first assembly, this entire assembly process in July, and we focused on what safety means to us in the big picture sense. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And what needs to change? The community generated ideas, and that was compiled into a list, over 80 ideas, and the community then had the opportunity to participate in a survey to narrow in on what their top priorities are. And ultimately, between July and August, we actually arrived at our top 3 priorities based on a ranked choice voting process. We then took those priorities and had our second assembly to talk about participatory budgeting and what the city budget really needs to look like to meet those priorities. Next slide, please. Our top priorities that the community arrived at are defunding the police and investing the money in community organizations, ensuring livable wages for all to meet basic needs, and then diverting funds to community programs and the resources to ensure that people get the mental health help that they need. So this is a snapshot of our community demographics. And as you can see, Black people are roughly 22% of the community, and roughly 60% of the community are white, and our Indigenous and Latinx and Asian family represent the rest of the community. We're considered a mid-sized city at 118,000 people. And we also have made national headlines as being a community that has the most multiracial families and individuals. So we have truly come together and represent really tremendous diversity. And we want to move that diversity to racial equity. Next slide, please. So we're talking about city leadership and what that means. And one of the things that we unpacked as we were just preparing for this facility is that just in our region, we have multiple governments and they have different structures. So for Lansing in particular, we have a mayor and a city council structure. And this is really important because the mayor actually appoints and hires some of the key decision makers and policy makers who impact our lives on a daily basis. So that one individual is going to impact our lives. So from the city manager to fire chief, to our city attorney, the chief of police, the heads of city departments, and every board and commission is appointed by that one individual. There is a great deal of power invested in that person in this structure for Lansing. Next slide, please. So a comparison that we discussed is Lansing, which is a strong mayor system, and that the mayor is the chief executive officer. And actually, much like the president of the United States, he is actually the commander in chief and actually has police authority. The mayor directs the administrative structure. He can appoint and remove department heads. And the mayor actually has veto power. And that is how we balance the power of city council with the strong executive. Now, the comparison is East Lansing, which actually has, the mayor doesn't have veto power, and he is not the person who would directly appoint or remove individuals. The council holds the power with both legislative and executive authority. And we're not suggesting that one system is better or the other. They're just different, and it's important to understand the differences. So these are a few of the mayoral expectations that are outlined in this Lansing City Charter. And I'm not going to read through all of this, and just want to lift up a few things because we do want you to actually investigate this. We're going to send out the slides. You'll have a chance to go back and review these materials in more depth and really understand what that charter looks like in more depth. A conservative over the peace. The mayor confers powers to our law enforcement, and the mayor is ultimately responsible for reducing unlawful discrimination and increasing mutual understanding among the residents of the community. And the mayor is ultimately responsible for reporting on the status of affirmative action programs of the city. So those are a few things that we want to highlight, but we absolutely encourage you to take a deeper dive into that city charter. We need to understand what powers the mayor is granted and those that we might want to take a look at. So our Lansing City Council is comprised of 8 members, 4 at large, and there are 4 wards that each have a council member. Elections are held every odd year for the at-large and the ward members. Next slide, please. And as you can see, these are the committees that have been actually created by City Council. And these are distinct from the commissions that are actually appointed by the mayor. The most recently, and I want to welcome Pat Spitzley. Thank you so much, Patricia, for being here, Lansing City Council member, who is the new chair of the newly formed Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, which is actually holding a lot of the conversation and the work that we are discussing to reimagine public safety. Next slide, please. So again, the boards, authorities, and commissions understanding what city council powers are and how those are balanced with mayor's powers. And the different committees and councils, and understanding that they are distinct and that there may be some overlap in what their focus area is, but they are separate bodies and decision-making process, and who they are accountable to, and ultimately who has authority over those commissions is defined by who actually appoints them and who forms them. Next slide, please. So right now we are all in on the presidential election. Hopefully you have your ballot and you've either dropped it off, you've mailed it back in, or you're voting in person. I cannot emphasize that enough. But we are actually preparing for 2021. We don't want to wait until next year to start thinking about the kind of leadership that we want. And so in 2021, we are going to elect a new mayor, a new city clerk. We have 2 at-large council member positions, as well as the 2nd and 4th ward council members. That's a whole lot. And we have a year to really understand who the incumbents are and also who the candidates are. And we are going to dive deeper into it. So right now we want to think on the front end before next year about what it is that we want. We want to name what we want to see in our city council members and in our mayor and in our city clerk, who I think is actually doing an amazing job right now, by the way, making sure that we are all well-versed in the changes in voting laws, because there have been very many, and we have greater access to the ballot than ever before, which is why there is a concerted effort to suppress our vote. So yes, get that ballot back in. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you after your breakout sessions. And we'll turn it over to Regine for our community agreements.
Thank you, Angela. Hello, everyone. I am just going to quickly read off a few community agreements that we have in place, and we ask that everyone please respect and uphold these agreements. As a member and/or a supporter of the Lansing community, I agree to make a conscious commitment to honor the following agreements. Respect. Respect the right of others to hold opinions and beliefs that differ from your own. When you disagree, challenge or critique the idea, not the person. Affect. Practice intentional listening. Let your comments, requests for clarification, critiques, and etc. reflect that you have paid attention to the comments made by the person who spoke before you. Inclusion. Take space, make space. Be mindful of others. Share responsibility. If you have much to say, try to hold back a bit. If you are hesitant to speak, look for opportunities to contribute to the discussion. Grace. Recognize that we are still learning. Be willing to change your perspective and to make space for others to do the same. Sanctuary. Create a safe space for sharing. Keep personal stories that people share confidential. And that is it for our community agreements.
Thank you, Regine. And we appreciate, now, if you are in agreement with these tenets, please put up an emoji, a clap, or a thumbs up on your screen so that we can all see in solidarity that we stand in agreement. We also say lean in, lean out. When someone is speaking, lean in with your ears so that the conversation can be full. And when you get finished speaking, lean out and make room for others. So again, thank you. Let's see those thumbs up. Thank you for the thumbs up on the screen. Absolutely. And we'll go to our next slide. So you will have 1 hour for your breakouts. And what we will do is we will also post these questions in the comments or the chat feature so that you can review them. And while you're in your breakout sessions, feel free to use the comment section as well. Inside of each breakout session, there is a facilitator and a note taker. So please, again, like I said, these are just not frivolous conversations. The results of these people's assembly will make its way into some form of policy. Now, we've put a lot in the comment section. You have the Breed Act link, you have the city charter in the link. You also have the questions that are in the link. And so we filled that up. So again, if there's something that you're missing, please check the comment section. And if you're having technical difficulties, reach out to our tech support, Sarah Gettle. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah as we start moving people into breakout rooms.